Welcome to Friend or Foe, the series where we pick apart the characters from some of our favorite games to figure out who is a friend, someone we don't need to worry will stab us in the back, and who is a foe, someone who would intentionally bring harm to the group if given the chance. I'm Josh Bearheart Hawk, and today we're finding out if one betrayal is enough to send someone to the gallows as we talk about Eleanor from Telltale Games' The Walking Dead Season 3. As always, you can find a link in the description to a playlist for this series for those long nights where you just want to sit back, relax, and listen to a bunch of breakdowns all at once. Eleanor from Telltale Games' The Walking Dead, A New Frontier, might be one of the most controversial characters in the season. She's a member of the Prescott community and winds up losing her home alongside Tripp and Conrad when the New Frontier group attacks. Fleeing to Richmond alongside Tripp, Conrad, Javier, Kate, Gabe, and Clementine, she becomes a second pair of hands in the medical field for that community as she worked and was trained as an EMT prior to the start of the zombie outbreak. Their doctor, a man named Paul Lingard, recognizes her stitch work on Kate, who had suffered some major trauma prior to the fall of Prescott, and immediately calls for her to work alongside him. Other than the fact that she was an EMT, not much is known about her prior to society falling, and at some point she wound up coming to Prescott and becoming the closest thing they had to a doctor, while also getting romantically involved with their leader, Tripp, for a short while. Things at Prescott were going pretty good for her overall, until a man named Javier showed up with his family and a girl named Clem. The first time we officially meet Eleanor in the game, she is coming to treat Javier after he had an altercation with another member of the community. Well, altercation is putting it lightly, as he and Clementine actually killed the man accidentally. But before that, the man nicked Javier with a knife, and he has a decent gash over his eye. Eleanor either comes to the jail cell where Javi and Clem are being held, or assists Javier in the makeshift medical tent they've got on the main stretch of Prescott. After stitching him up, she goes the extra mile and offers to help Javier to get back to his family, who he was forced to leave behind at a junkyard not too far from the small community. He can choose to either take her up on the offer or go with Tripp the following morning. But either way, the important part here to focus on is the fact that she's willing to do whatever needs to be done, including breaking the rules, to help out a complete stranger. That's something that she maybe doesn't get enough credit for, as she sees this man in need of getting back to his family and is willing to not only break the rules and ignore Tripp's insistence on waiting until morning, but also to risk her own life by going outside the walls, where she could face anything from zombies to raiders in the attempt. The flip side of that, however, is that she is the only one in Prescott with medical training, and would therefore be possibly the worst person for the community to lose. If she was killed or bitten, it could devastate the small town, and cause even more loss of life down the road when people who needed medical attention weren't able to get it. Thankfully, she isn't hurt either way, but her expertise winds up being needed as one of the members of Javier's group, Kate, gets shot in the stomach by a member of the New Frontier as she and the rest are leaving the junkyard. Eleanor either has to rush back with Kate, or get to work quickly as Tripp brings Kate back through the gate, and with very little in the way of tools, she has to perform surgery to remove the bullet and stitch up the wound. There's only so much she can do though, as Kate is suffering from internal bleeding, and without more equipment, there's nothing that Eleanor can do to save her. From the conversation she has with Javier after the surgery is done, it's pretty clear she knows her stuff medically, and that she has some experience with giving bad news to patients or their families. This is training that likely went along with her time as an EMT, and sets her apart from another supposed medical professional we've seen in this series, Carlos. EMTs have to be able to stay calm under pressure, triage difficult and sometimes impossible situations, and to make life or death decisions quickly while also being able to manage communication with people who might be facing the worst day of their lives. It isn't easy, and it takes a very special kind of person to handle the stress that comes with the job, and Eleanor seems to fit that mold well. and the ability to stay calm under pressure stands out in other facets as she and the others wind up facing an assault from the New Frontier that destroys Prescott, and they barely make it out with their lives. Eleanor is able to save Kate in the chaos, loading her up in a car and getting out of town with Trip, Javi, Conrad, and Gabe as zombies and raiders pile through the gates. After a brief stop to catch their breath and collect themselves, the group decides to try and push on to a larger city nearby known as Richmond. It should have the medical resources they need to help Kate, and it could be a place to regroup before figuring out how to deal with the New Frontier. But things don't go exactly as planned. Eleanor winds up having to drive Kate to Richmond on her own after a horde of zombies overwhelms the group. And when the car breaks down just blocks from the gate, she has to leave the injured woman behind to try and get help. But that doesn't work out quite as well as she'd hoped, as she's taken inside Richmond and locked in a quarantine room. It turns out the New Frontier has taken over Richmond, and while they tell her they will go out looking for Kate, they don't actually locate the woman before the rest of the group catches up and finds her still resting on the backseat of the car where Eleanor left her. The whole situation is kind of a mess, but it isn't long before Eleanor's presence is requested by Dr. Lingard, as he recognizes her skill and wants her to join him and become the second doctor in the community. Now, there's a lot that happens outside of her little section of the world as she's getting acclimated to her new role, but there are really only a couple of things worth discussing when it comes to Eleanor before we get the final verdict on whether she's a friend or a foe. First, she's really focused on helping people in general, regardless of their motivations or who they are. And she sees the chance to work in the Richmond community as a way to help the most people possible in the best way. Richmond has a lot of stuff that she didn't have access to at Prescott, from better medicine to upgraded medical equipment and facilities. And she sees the chance as one worth taking regardless of whatever else might be going on. We find out through the story that one of the leaders of Richmond, Joan, has taken advantage of her position to orchestrate raids on other communities, which is one of the reasons for the medical advantage they have. And while it can easily be argued that those raids were wrong, from Eleanor's perspective, they are in the past, and the best thing she can do is to focus on the future and doing the best she can with the resources she now has. She might not agree with Joan or her methods, but as a medical professional, her life is dedicated to doing what she can to limit harm. She can't be focused on what might have been done in the past, as that doesn't do anyone any good. She has to move forward and try to find ways to work within the system to heal those who need her help. And all of that drives her into the next thing, the event that people seem to focus on the most when it comes to her character. As Javier, Kate, and the rest plan to overthrow Joan and leave Richmond, Eleanor makes the decision to double-cross them and share the plan with Joan instead. Her goal is simple, to limit the harm done and hope that things don't get too out of hand. But things do wind up getting out of hand because Joan decides to execute either Trip or Ava, and all hell breaks loose after that as a couple of the other leaders decide to go against Joan before David gets free and a truck comes barreling through the crowd and smashes into a wall, allowing a horde of zombies to come flooding in. We do wind up seeing Eleanor one more time as she's treating people in an apartment, but after that she just kind of fades into the background and her eventual fate is left up to the player to make up. And that brings us to the point of the video, deciding whether Eleanor is a friend or a foe. On the one hand, she goes out of her way to help people and only wants to do what she thinks will bring the most good to the situation. She helps Javier and even breaks the rules to try and make sure his family is taken care of. She also does everything in her power to save Kate and recognizes the chance to potentially save more lives with the New Frontier, even when everyone else is unwilling to work with them. The New Frontier is the flip side of the coin for Eleanor, though, because it can be easily argued that her desire to save people and minimize the damage by betraying the group's plan to Joan got people killed. Trip and Ava were trotted out on stage, and one of them was killed because Joan knew ahead of time to expect Javier in the crowd and wanted to make a show of things. If Eleanor hadn't told her what was up, that might not have happened at all. But the truth is that Eleanor can't be held responsible for the acts of a psychopath like Joan. She didn't know the depths of Joan's depravity, and she wouldn't have gone to her if she had known that Joan was going to kill someone because of it. She simply wanted to limit the harm that was going to come from the situation and made a mistake that would have been an easy mistake to make for just about anyone. And that mistake isn't enough to bring her down, as she comes out as a friend overall. She really tried to do the right thing, even when doing the right thing didn't always work out. And at the end of the day, the intention is the most important thing in this series. She didn't go to Joan because she wanted Javier or anyone else killed or punished. She did it because she thought that it would stop whatever plan they had from causing more harm. And she would have been right if the other leaders had stepped up and called out the decision to execute Tripp or Ava, and if David hadn't acted so brash when he could have just walked away. At any point, the people enabling Joan could have stopped everything that happened, and they shouldered the blame alongside Joan for all the blood that was spilled. Eleanor didn't have any real power or sway, and her telling Joan about the plan Javier had didn't even really impact anything outside of the situation with Tripp and Ava. Let's look at it this way. If she doesn't go to Joan, David is still on the stage to be hanged. Javier and Kate still steal the truck and come into town. Javi still comes to the hanging and speaks up in an attempt to save David. And everything else plays out the same way. Nothing Eleanor told Joan changes a single thing outside of the decision to bring out Tripp and Ava. And for all we know, that was the plan all along anyway. But now I want to turn this discussion over to you in the comments. Was I right to label Eleanor as a friend, or is she still a foe in your mind? Did my arguments in her favor at the end change your opinion of her if you saw her as a foe to begin with? If you made it this far, make sure to hit the like button to let YouTube know that you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to Lost in Games on YouTube so you don't miss any future Friend or Foe episodes, or any episodes of the other series I have here on the channel, Philosophy and Ethics in Games. If you want to help support the channel in other ways, I've got channel memberships, a Patreon, and a membership program on my website, where you can chip in a couple of dollars a month to help me get new games to cover, while getting some cool things like having your name on the screen in videos and early access, among other perks. That's all I've got for now. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.